What is the best film emulator for DaVinci Resolve? Is it Dehancer or is it DaVinci's built-in film look creator? Keep watching to find out. I think you might be surprised. Before we get into this video, I would like to preference that Dehancer has provided me their software for free. However, they are not paying me, nor are they watching this video before it is released. Now back to the video, and I'd like to start off by saying I am not a professional colorist. I am an automotive videographer. So this video is a lot more of a simpler breakdown of both programs and comparing the two with a focus on the automotive side. If you'd like a more advanced video about either of the programs, then let me know in the comments below. But now onto the fight. So let's start off with Dehancer. Dehancer is an external plugin made for Premiere Pro, After Effects, DaVinci Resolve, and many more programs, but today's video will be focusing on DaVinci Resolve. It's a plugin made for videographers who want to get that feel and that look of analog film, but in their digital workflow, and they want to do it with absolute ease. And on the other side of the ring, you have DaVinci Resolve's built-in film emulator called Film Look Creator. It's a plugin built into DaVinci Resolve to give you that film look and feel, but in the DaVinci Resolve's environment. Before I show you the plugins in action and have them face off each other, I'd like to say if you're interested in any of the Dehancer programs, then check out the link in the description below and use code PRIMEFilmStudios at checkout to receive 10% off your order. This doesn't include the iOS app subscriptions, however. Right, let's go to my laptop and show you how each of these programs work. So at my laptop now, we're going to go through each of the plugins and show you what each of the settings do. So starting off, we're going to apply Dehancer onto a color node. And here, as you can already see, it's already applied the film look. And as we can see at the top here, it says source Rec 709. So if you have it applied onto Rec 709, that's basically because I have a delogger on here, which is delogging the Sony footage into Rec 709. However, if we disable this, we can actually choose camera, and I will pick the Sony A7 Mark IV and S-Log3 S-Gamut3 Cine, which is what I used. As you can see, it's made it Rec 709 built into the plugin. This is how I personally use the plugin. I make the plugin delog the footage for me. I've noticed that it does a really good job at this, and it just saves me having extra nodes in the node tree, which can sometimes get really complex. So there are other source options like Rec 2020, Apple Gamut, ACES or ACES, depending on how you pronounce it, and other options, but today we're just going to stick to Rec 709/choose camera. After that, we've got exposure compensations, so we can just do a nice compensate for the exposure, reset that, adjust the temperature, the tint of the footage. And then we've got defringe and defringe radius. This is here to help chromatic aberration in your footage. This input section here is to adjust your footage before it goes through the color grading process on Dehancer. So this is, for example, if your footage is too bright, too dark, too warm, too cold, to what you want it to be. So it's a good way to just edit the base footage. Next we have film. So this is where we can pick our film emulation that we want to use for this footage. Got Kodak Gold 200, but my personal favorite currently is, if I can find it, Cine Still 800T. This is currently my favorite film emulation to use on all my footage. You can also enable it, disable it, and do a push-pull EV on it. So push-pull here reacts the same as how you'd push-pull film in real life. So as you can see how it's adjusting the film look, it's completely different to just a exposure comp like above. Next up, we've got film developer. This, if we enable it, we can add in extra contrast or decontrast it. So I'm just going to add some contrast into this footage. We've got gamma correction, so this is helping with the shadows, as you can see. Color separation, which is changing how much color there is in the shadows. And then a color boost, again, adding color into the film, or into your footage, sorry. And again, we can enable and disable it and see the changes. Next up, we've got film compression. So if we enable this, this is doing the highlights of the footage. So as you can see, the impact it's doing on the Porsche's body here. We can adjust how much the white point we want. So we make it really high, make it that it's compressing a lot of the whites. Again, tonal range, we can adjust how much it's compressing. So if I just reset that and we adjust it to how I want it. So if I just do a little bit of tonal range like that, I'm happy with that. You can see how much it affects the balancing of the highlights. So the way you can look at film developer and film compression is film developer is kind of like the shadows and the dark side of the footage. Film compression is the highlights and the lights of the footage, and you can adjust that with the plugin. So next up we've got expand. This is where you can adjust your black point and your white points. You can also do different color modes for these black and white points. Again, you can enable and disable it. So the next section is print. Print is a way to simulate the look of your footage being actually on physical paper. I'm personally not the biggest fan of using this. I usually disable this, but it's a nice option for those people who want that kind of look. Next up, we've got color head. This is the ability to change the specific colors in the film. So we can adjust the yellows and the blues, adjust the magentas and the greens, adjust the cyan and the red, adjust the shadow tone, adjust the mid-tone, and the highlight tone. And then we can also make it preserve the exposure and how much it impacts the footage. The next section is film grain. Personally, I disable this, and that's just because I like the film look, but I still want my image to have that clean aesthetic. But you have that option in Dehancer to enable it and disable it, and also to have different styles of grain. So obviously we can go 8mm, 16mm, 35mm, and also at different ISO values. So you can do ISO 50, 35mm, ISO 250 at 55mm, and so on, going up to 65mm and ISO 500. You can also, if I select 35mm, let's do 500 just so it's a bit more grainy. You can also adjust the amount, so you can make it super grainy or barely any grain. So if I zoom in, you can just barely see the grain added on. Again though, I leave mine disabled. The next section is halation, my personal favorite of Dehancer. So if we enable that, we can really see its effect in the Porsche over here, and we can adjust what kind of halation we want. So we can have 8mm, 16mm, 35mm, and 65mm film halation. And we can also go to the remjets, where we can actually disable the remjet, which means it is more of that red halation that you see very famous in a lot of cine still films. So I like to run this 35mm Super 5, 35 no remjet, that's my personal favorite. And I usually turn down the amplifier to about 40-ish. This just is a nice middle ground for me, where it's not too halation-y, is that a word? It's not too much halation, but it's still there and visible. And especially when you have a white car like we have here with this Porsche, sometimes halation can be a bit too much. So as we can see there, when we enable disable, we can see where it's adjusting on the car in the footage. Next up, we've got bloom. And as you can see, it's already bloomed out the car a lot. And again, we have the option of 65mm, 35mm, 16mm, and 8mm. And we can also adjust how much it amplifies it. Personally, for me, I run no bloom, and that's because I actually have mist filters on my camera, so I don't need more bloom. It's already got enough bloom for me personally. Next up, we've got film damage. So if we enable this, it might not be instantly visible, but if we let it play, you can see some of the damages on the film. It's not that visible, which is good. You don't want super ridiculous film damage. I think if we go down to 8mm, you can see a couple more actually appear. But again, this is a nice option provided by Dehancer, where you can have that film damage look on your footage to help it look more like film. And you can also adjust how much there is. I personally have this disabled, but again, the option is here for what you want to do. Next up, we've got film breath. So if we enable this and play, not too visible, it's quite hard to show it. Maybe at 8mm might be more visible. You can kind of see it doing that very famous film breath, as it says in its name. This is another option that I leave disabled personally, but again, the options there for you. So next up we've got gate weave, which is simulating the film being projected onto the screen. Hard to tell with this footage, but you can tell it with some other footage, and I feel like if we go to 8mm, we'll probably be able to see a lot more on footage. This is again another thing that I leave disabled, but is a really nice option included in Dehancer. Next up, we've got overscan, which we can have that's very famous film borders that you see here as I'm going through the footage. So a lot of options that we have here that we can go through and get exactly how we want it to look. This is another thing that I leave actually disabled personally. Next up we've got vignette, which if I enable here, you can see this is a bit self-explanatory, just adds vignette into the film. You can make it white or black vignette, just the size of it, the feathering, so you can see there, and even the aspect ratio of the vignette. This is another thing I leave disabled personally. And then another cool feature of Dehancer is you can actually do false color monitoring. It's really nice if you're color grading and you're trying to perfect your footage. You can also enable clipping indication, which shows where parts of your footage is clipping. Another good feature of Dehancer. And then lastly, total output. So this is just how much in total you're affecting the footage. Plain and simple. And then also you can have Dehancer output a LUT from the footage that you've made. Again, this could be useful for if you're monitoring and you want to create a LUT to monitor footage with on a monitor. Now I've gone through Dehancer very simply, like this is the tip of the iceberg, because if you go into, let me quickly find it, halation for example, and do custom, you can actually adjust all the different settings of how the halation works and affects your footage. I just like to use the presets just because it's a lot easier and quicker, but if you're someone who's very specific on how you want your halation or your bloom or your grain to look, all of that can be adjusted in Dehancer, and it just shows you how advanced this program is. Next up, let's move on to DaVinci's Film Look Creator and do a little walk around of that. So same goes here. If we just type in Film Look Creator and just add that onto this node, and you can already see the film look added on. So DaVinci's Film Look Creator, you can either run a delog first to delog the footage, or you can delog it yourself with an S-curve, or you can also use color space overrides and enter in your color space. So if I put in S gamut free Cine, Sony S-log 3, and then outputs to the timeline, as you can see, it is delogged the footage for us. So again, this can simplify your workload if you just want to have a single node that can take care of everything, or you can go advanced and have separate nodes for delogging and film looks, etc. So starting up from the top, we have presets. So we've got default 65, default 35, cinematic, bleach bypass, nostalgia, default no effects. I don't know why you'd use this, but it's a thing. Clean slate, and then custom. So I like to use the cinematic preset personally. So then below that, we can adjust the color blend and the effects blend, so we can adjust how intensive the effects and the color are on the footage. Next up, we've got the film look, which is where we can blend that filmic look. And here is the 5 different looks you get in DaVinci Resolve Film Look Creator. So you've got cinematic, Rochester, Alaska, elated, and vintage. And that's all the looks you get in DaVinci Resolve's Film Look Creator. Next up, we've got skin bias, which obviously here when we are looking at a car, you can't really tell what it's doing, but that is affecting the skin tones of a person if you're affecting them. Next up, we've got color settings. This is very similar to Dehancer, where we can just adjust the exposure, the contrast, highlights, add in a fade, the white balance of the footage, the tint, saturation, the richness, and bleach bypass. All of which are very self-explanatory, but a nice little option to have in Film Look Creator, which means that you can actually edit your whole footage without needing to use multiple nodes. You can just use one node with the Film Look Creator and do your whole editing process. Next up, we've got split tone. It's quite hard to explain, but if I just enable it and disable it, you can actually see how it's affecting the footage. You can change how much the split toning works on your footage, the hue angle, and pivot of the split tone. After that, we've got vignetting, which you can see there. A lot less options when it comes to vignetting than in Dehancer. We can enable and disable that. I'm going to leave mine disabled. Emulation, enable and disable it. You can see it affecting on the headlights. Again, we can adjust the amount, the radius, saturation, and even the hue of the halation effect. And then you can enable and disable it. And also you can make it only work on the highlights or work on the whole image. Next up, we've got bloom. You can see here, self-explanatory, it's adding bloom onto the footage. Change the amount of bloom and the radius of the bloom. Next up, we've got grain. So as we can see here, you can change the amount of grain, the size of the grain pellets, the softness of the grain, saturation even of the grain, and how much it defocuses the original image with the grain. And then also we have set presets for grains, 35, 16, 8mm, etc. Personally, I run no grain, but again, this is an option if you want to run grain. Next up, we've got flicker. So this is very similar to in Dehancer. Hard to show on the footage here, but if it's an effect that you want, I think you know exactly what it is and what it does. The flicker, we've got gate weave, similar to Dehancer. You can enable and disable that. Personally, gate weave and flicker, I leave both disabled. And then film gate, this is very similar to Dehancer, where we can add in the overlays for the film gates. Although I will say Dehancer definitely has a lot more options when it comes to the film gate, even having the ability to do the Super 8 famous sprocket look. You can enable curvature and how much padding it has as well on the edges. And then finally, we've got global blend. And that's it for Film Look Creator. It's very much a simpler program than Dehancer, but it's still an amazing plugin to use to get that film look. Now, let's go compare the two plugins and pick out my favorite. So now that we've gone through both of the programs, let's go compare the two and see which one is best for your workflow. Let's start off with probably the biggest difference between the programs, the price. At 59 USD a month or 53 and 10 cent USD a month if you use my code, Dehancer is not the cheapest of options. However, if you do pay quarterly, it is 149 USD or 134 and 10 cent USD if you use my code, and 299 USD or 269 and 10 cent USD with my code if you pay yearly. Plus, if you only want Dehancer for a certain program, you can actually pay 549 USD or 494 and 10 cent USD with my code, and you actually get a lifetime subscription for that program. However, this makes DaVinci Film Look Creator look like a charity, since most of the features are available in the free version, and extra features like grain, halation, and bloom is only available in the studio version of DaVinci Resolve, which is 295 USD for life. This is probably going to be the biggest deciding factor for most people, but more on that in the verdict. Now, moving on from that very big downside of Dehancer, let's talk about probably my favorite feature of Dehancer, and that's the film emulations. And where do I begin? With over 60 different real-world films to choose from, such as Kodak Gold 200, CineStill 800T, Superior Extra 400, Kodak Vision 3, many more, you're definitely spoiled for choice. Now, I do wish they did include my personal favorite film, CineStill 400D, but hopefully they might include it. Whilst with DaVinci's Film Look Creator, you get a whole choice of 5. That's it, 5 looks. And none of these are branded looks. They are just generic film looks that are similar to some real world counterparts, but not the same. And this does leave a lot to be desired when you're color grading, as I noticed personally, I lean more towards that cinematic look and just adjusting the settings to make it match real world film. Another good and bad point of Dehancer is the controls. Dehancer is a lot more advanced with options such as color head and print emulations, and even just normal controls being a lot more advanced. However, this could also be a disadvantage of Dehancer. If a person is going into this plugin with no experience of film and film colors, they won't understand what a color head is or film compression is, and it could even put them off the plugin. Whereas DaVinci Resolve's Film Look Creator is a lot more simpler with options such as highlights, contrast, shadows, etc., which will be a lot more beginner friendly to someone with little to no experience of color grading. Suggestion I'll make for the Dehancer team is to have a simple option or a simple version of their plugin where people with little to no experience of color grading can just jump straight into the plugin and make their digital footage have that film look. Another positive to Dehancer is if you're someone using multiple different programs such as After Effects, Final Cut, or even if you're a photographer as well and you edit your photos in Lightroom. Subscribing to Dehancer gives you access to the plugins in all the supported programs, which means you can get that film look in any program you're using, not just DaVinci Resolve. Plus you get access to Dehancer's film emulation iOS app and Dehancer Online, which means you can edit your photos to get that film look both on your phone and in your browser with no added costs. And if you'd like me to make a separate video about Dehancer's photography features, then do let me know in the comments below. Is this a deal breaker? Well, it depends on your workflow, but this is a nice positive of Dehancer. Finally, and this one is subjective, but I personally prefer Dehancer's halation, glow, and grain than DaVinci Resolve's Film Look Creator. You can just tell Dehancer has put in a lot more time and effort into trying to make theirs look as realistic as possible and react the same as how film would react in real life. On screen now, I'm showing you examples from both of the plugins with none of the settings adjusted so you can get an idea of how it looks like straight out of the box. Let me know in the comments below which one of the two is your favorite. So the verdict, and it is a very hard choice, and to be honest, it is very subjective and very dependent on your needs. Do you just have that one project where you need to get that film look? Then I'll say just use DaVinci Resolve's built-in Film Look Creator, especially if you already have DaVinci Resolve Studio. It's a free plugin that comes with DaVinci and it does a really good job, especially with some tweaks. However, are you like me where you love that film look and you edit all your videos with that filmic look? Then I'll say it's worth getting Dehancer. It's by far got more options with even the ability to pick your favorite film to emulate, and personally it does just look more realistic. Plus, one thing I would suggest if you're on the fence about buying Dehancer is to download the free version. It gives you full access to the plugin with just a watermark over your footage, and it's a good way to try out and see if it is something that you're willing to put your money into. Well, I hope this video has helped you make a decision about which plugins you want to use. Personally, I'm sticking to Dehancer, but let me know in the comments below what you guys are picking. If you did like this video, then be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.